Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Be the Vessel podcast. My name is Daniel, and today I will be speaking on breath, breath, breath work. Why is it so fundamental, foundational to the healing path? Well, the the easiest piece of evidence I can bring to the essential nature of breath work and healing is look at literally any healing modality. Look at any healing modality. I often I consider myself to be a bridge between uh, Western, Eastern, or more traditional clinical realms and quote unquote spiritual realms, traditional versus holistic and alternative. It's a spectrum. It's not an either or, but I consider myself to be a bridge between worlds. And so I look for medicines, um, modalities, access points, resources that act as beautiful bridges between multiple worlds. It's more like a multiverse of healing rather than an either or. And breathing, the power of breath is one of these bridges because you can look at ancient forms of wisdom and text, Buddhist study, yogic study, as well as modern neuroscience research, connections between brain and body, activation of the vagus nerve, and everything in between. You can look at really any realm or area of society. You can look at elite performance athletes. You can look at military training. Um, everything it utilizes breath, and it's only become more profound and more um, readily acknowledged as one of the most crucial parts of existence. And it's funny to say, like, obviously, because we all need to breathe. Um, yes, but for so long we ignored its power. You know, for many many years in the clinical psychological world, you would just sit in a chair and you would talk, and there'd be no emphasis, no recognition of where the breath was, how the breath was. Was it tight? Was it slow? Was it fast? Was it rapid? And yet, if you look at all clinical diagnoses of distress, of functioning, whether it's physical, emotional, mental, it's all going to impact breathing. And because all suffering impacts breathing, breathing impacts all suffering. And learning to work with the breath and use the breath and bring the breath into the whole body is, if I had to choose one, the single most profound tool that I've experienced and that I know of. We can use breath to settle the nervous system, to come into our emotional window of tolerance. Um, and in doing that, all of that sort of gets wrapped up in cultivating intuitive wisdom, learning or hearing or listening to your spirit guides, checking in with yourself, developing heart brain coherence, um, healing the immune system, healing disease and illness, healing pain, going into deeper states of meditation. It really all stems from the foundation of creating the optimal environment for present focused awareness. And breath is just simply one of the easiest and most effective tools to do this. With slowing down the breath, you forcibly slow down the conscious mind. It's very difficult to be thinking fast and breathing slow. If you speed up your breath or if you hold your breath, suddenly the mind can rapidly go, 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 go. But if you consciously and with intention choose to slow down the breath, the rest, you may hear your thoughts being like, oh my God, speed up. I'm so bored. Speed up, which is good. You're cultivating a state of ease and grace when other parts of you are not so interested in it, which is actually why if you do any strength training or yogic training, um, instructors will teach you to slow down the breath during the hardest moments when you're, holding a plank or, learning how to breathe effectively with a deep squat or something. To slow down the breath keeps the heart rate low and keeps your body from panicking. It's actually, cold exposure is big these days, right? And so learning from Wim Hof, learning breath work from Wim Hof, who demonstrates the nth degree of how powerful breath can be, literally like healed his body from an injected virus. He's climbed Everest numerous times in like shorts and bare feet, or, he's an animal. He's incredible. He's a powerful healer. And it's a great example of how breath can literally change your physiological state and teach the brain and the rest of the nervous system that you are safe, even when it's experiencing duress and direct stress in the form of cold. I've worked with people who had severe panic disorders and had been overprescribed tons of medications, tons of different therapists and psychiatrists. In one session, providing them tools for breath work, they virtually stopped having panic attacks. Now, I'm not looking for a pat on the back. Like, just because you heal an acute symptom, doesn't mean there's not a longer list of lessons to learn, because that's the symptom experience is just the tip of the iceberg. However, what a profound medicine, what a profound example of how such a simple and overlooked tool can bring us out of crisis, bring us out of panic, keep us from having to go to the hospital. Create the space for healing. Because before we can heal, we need to create the space to heal. We need to create the optimal environment to heal. Before we can grow plants, we need to fertilize the soil. We need to create really fertile soil. And then it just grows on its own. And it's the same thing with healing. We just need to create the optimal environment for healing to take place, for the traumas and the conditioning to just naturally bubble up to the surface and release. And the best way we can do that is with breath, is through breath. And, and there's many modalities. There's many forms that this is practiced. There's much longer, intensive 30, 45-minute breath work experiences, or, as I might use it in my service and in my personal practice, as an entryway into different energetic states, calling in light frequency, talking to guides, listening to the heart space. We can always start with the breath. And there's so many different kinds, so many different forms to play with, more active, more peaceful and calming. And it's always there for us. Always, for as long as we're alive, the breath is always there for us. And with it, as you learn to allow the breath to move through you, you learn to dance with it. It becomes its own rhythm. And when you feel like you can't take in enough air, if you feel like at times you can't take in enough air, you're yawning a lot, you learn that that's okay. It's the body working itself out. You don't have to force it. The breath will come. It will, the air that needs to be released, that needs to be taken in. And there are practices to support this. You can do a lot of this growth on your own. Though one of my favorite modalities that I use to this day, body-based modalities that actually created one of the most profound entryways into energy healing, and healing really the profound distortion in my nervous system, is network chiropractic care, or also known as spinal network analysis, developed by Donnie Epstein and practiced by a beautiful and niche community of highly trained energy-based chiropractic healers across the country. And it's all about breath and the way that they work. I actually can't explain exactly the way that they work, but I've read one of Donnie's books, and it's incredible book on healing and trauma, is really using their own energy to sort of entrain you on the table. It's not about cracking. It's about teaching you with their own energy, aligning with your energy, to allow the chi to flow, the life source energy to begin to flow, and you use it with breath. With breath, you can build the fire and power within you. And then you can also allow it to integrate so it dances. And I'm telling you, your spine will dance. I've had psychedelic experiences on the table. I've burst out laughing. I've had intense moments of fire, because we all have power now within us. Now, at times it may feel like deep tension and pain if it's not being integrated, if there's not flow through the body, through the chakras, through the nervous system. And so we need to, at times, teach the body and the brain how to allow this flow, how to allow the spine to dance with energy, to send breath deep into the root chakra, into the belly, into the root, and then up to the chest and to the crown. And to feel that flow all the way through the body it's immense. You may realize over time that you've literally only been breathing so shallow into the chest for most of your life. And that's why maybe, when I was a kid, the one interesting story I always remember is I used to sigh a lot. And I was in trouble with my parents a good amount. I was smoking a lot of pot. I was generally angry and depressed, getting in trouble, doing all sorts of things. And with one clinician that I was not seeing voluntarily, let's put it that way. They pointed out that my sighs seemed to be a form of disrespect, that I would always sigh after, they would ask me something, and this clinician said something very beautiful, which is literally that I wasn't getting enough oxygen. And in that moment, I felt such a relief of shame, because I was feeling so misunderstood by my expressions, that all my expressions were so disrespectful and rude, when in reality, I didn't know how to breathe. And my parents weren't wrong either. I was clearly having a reaction. It wasn't random that every time they said something, that's when I was running out of air. But it was more connected to a stress response than it was like a malicious thing. The body reactively sighs when it's attempting to release tension when it's built up enough and you can't get enough air. So it's actually attempting to get more oxygen, and learning how to do this for yourself, how to regulate the nervous system, is one pathway to alleviating all that tension, to processing emotion that I didn't know how to process at the time. to speaking your truth, using your voice, which I didn't know how to use at the time. I only knew how to react. My brain was very reactive, and I would withdraw into myself, into my room alone at night. I didn't know how to be with the feelings. Breath expands the capacity and tolerance for us to be with the emotional experience and then ultimately to verbalize it. If you're someone who, as I was, who would get so panicked in social situations, in and any situations that required performance, um, and your chest tightens and you forget to breathe. Ask any artist, any musician, any athlete how they perform when they don't breathe. Terribly. Your body tightens. I used to play tennis, and you know, in some ways I had pretty good skills, but I always choked because I had so much panic and stress in my nervous system and conditioned trauma that I forgot I wouldn't breathe, and I would just mess up. And it was sad, and I felt so frustrated with myself for that. But you know, we can, with grace, we can cultivate forgiveness for what we did not know, and the body that we inherited with all its ancestral lineage and trauma and conditioning and karmic inheritance and early life and environments and everything. Most of us don't understand this, don't understand how anxiety works, don't understand how fear conditioning works, how the physiological response and communication. And so we need this education, and we need to experience the power of breath as we can actually bring ourselves out of panic states and into calm, and to see when you're able to glimpse, when you have lived your entire life with deep, deep anxiety, as I did, and I know many of you do, and you glimpse what it's like to actually relax, to be in a relaxed state. It's people talk about otherworldly state, and I've been in many altered states, feeling ultimate bliss and love, and the influence of plant medicine and just through meditation, and I have felt all sorts of amazing ways. But let me tell you, the pure state of just relaxation, of actual relaxation, it's worth, it's invaluable. It's when you see that it's possible for you. So many of us, even clinicians, many clinicians, in fact, I actually just taught a course to psychology students in training, and nearly all of them had pervasive amounts of anxiety. We teach these mindfulness and breathwork exercises, but if we haven't experienced its power, we don't really know. We don't really have conviction that we ourselves can relax and can ease the self-punishing mind and define grace. We think, oh no, that's just for like meditation teachers and yogis and, just really genetically, people who are set up genetically for that kind of thing. But no, you have the capacity too. It seems impossible. I'm telling you, my, you know, my brain, pardon my language, but my brain was so fucked. I, you did not want to be inside my head. And you might think the same thing about your head. There is a path. There is a path to calm, to peace. And breath is, I mean, yeah, it works. It works. It's not the only thing. And I'm not someone who puts all my eggs in one basket, because there was never one basket that worked for me in totality. But over the years, I have a collection of tools, and I continue to gain tools, and I'm a seeker. So I'm open to new things, as you should be. Try anything, try everything. As long as you can keep your hope and sustain your motivation. It doesn't burn you out. Find the things that work for you. I'm not sure I've ever met anyone who is on the healing path who hasn't, where breathwork has not been one of their tools, at least something that they've experienced. And even if not directly, because if you do other practices, if you do yoga, you are learning breathwork. You might not say it or think it. If you practice meditation, you are learning breath. You know, you might not explicitly say, yes, I do breath work, but you are doing it. It's underlying mostly all your practices. And I bet if you are one of those people and you start to go toward it explicitly, it will only amplify your healing, and you will see, you will unlock even deeper layers, because there are layers and levels to breath. It's a magical tool. It's a magical tool. So I encourage you, I invite you, if it's not a part of your practice yet, if you have a daily practice, or if you don't, it can be a great entry level start to a daily practice, because you don't have to have this hour long, 2 hour long practice where you're going into these deep meditative states and you're journaling everything about your trauma and you're talking to guides and you're whatever. It doesn't have to be. You can just, each morning you wake up, and I used to do this when I was, you know, I was healing. I was doing my best to heal when I was wrapped up in the throes of despair and fatigue. And it really started with just like 5 minutes of breath in the morning and at night. And, but sometimes I would do neither. But when I could get myself to do it, it would just be like 5 minutes, like a box breathing exercise, 4 by 4. If you can get yourself there for just, less than 5 minutes, it's like a minute to do a 4 by 4 breath, in through the nose for 4, hold for 4, out for 4, hold for 4. And you do that 4 times. I mean, that takes a minute, not less. And if you want to expand from there, you can do a Wim Hof cycle, or you can do alternate nostril breathing, or you can do breath of fire or lion's breath, or, ultimately it doesn't actually matter. It's really just about the breathing with intention. You can just take deep breaths. If you wake up and get yourself to sit and breathe with the intention of just breathing and bringing fresh energy into the body and releasing your stuckness, whatever stuckness you carried over the course of the night, or in the evening before bed, just clearing the tensions of the day and just breathing in, and readying yourself, clearing space to rest. If you just did that and nothing else, guarantee your life would change. Do that for 30 days straight. Your life will change. A door will open, an insight will come from that. I guarantee it. Guarantee it. It is that powerful an entryway into present focus. And with present focus, all of the possibilities for healing arise. It doesn't have to be fantastical with angels and demons and visions. And, it also doesn't have to be 10 years of psychoanalytic therapy. There's wiggle room there. Like, I'd be cautious of anyone who is on the extreme sort of edge case. I feel like that's a very like techie business term, the edge case, or like a statistics term, like the on the being on the margins. I'd be cautious of anyone on the margins of how long healing takes. On the one hand, people who say they can rapidly transform your life in one meeting. Sure. I think when healing happens, it can happen rapidly, but the journey is still, you know, we still have, it's like a happy ending in a movie, it's great, but in real life, you keep living life even after that moment. So it's a beautiful healing. And it might actually be, I look back and there are specific moments that were foundational, but then you keep living life and you keep learning lessons. So anyone who says that you'll heal everything or whatever, in one session. Be cautious of that. I'd also be cautious on the other end of the spectrum, which is the world that I left, which is almost this romantic idea of how long therapy takes. Like you'll be in therapy for 10 years. And some clinicians like lean into that and almost kind of project that idea into the space. And so neither is necessarily true. But within that, along that spectrum, if you're feeling overwhelmed or unsure of how to begin the journey, you're already breathing. So give that a try. Give that a try. Look up 4x4 box breathing and just do it. Just do it all the time. Just do it as often as you need. Anytime you get stressed, anytime you feel a tinge of anxiety, anytime you start to punish yourself, anytime you start to punish someone else, anytime you're steeped in judgment, anytime you sink down to despair, breathe. Breathe. I'm not here to say that it's going to answer all your questions. Half your questions don't really need to be answered ultimately. It's just a function of the threatened mind. But it will create the space you need, and it will take you to the next level, which may ultimately be to address the things that are actually creating tension. But before we can address those things, we need to breathe. That gives us the space to tackle whatever is in front of us. With breath, we can do anything. Just look at Wim Hof. You don't have to climb Everest in shorts. You just might need to be with this doubt or anger, which can at times feel like having to summit Everest, I will say. But the breath is your oxygen. I mean, like, obviously, I thought that was a metaphor, but it's quite literal. I kind of meant like the breath is your oxygen for Everest, like your oxygen tank, but whatever. You get the point. So, if I haven't managed to talk long enough on one podcast about breath, I think I'm there. So, I hope that this episode resonated with a part of you. May it be a medicine, a gift, an invitation for those who are ready to receive it. Thank you, and take care.